Hello and welcome back to the Inside Java podcast, a podcast about everything Java, brought to you by the team at Oracle that builds Java. My name is Nicolai Parlog, and today's episode is special. For 5 years now, the Inside Java podcast has brought you long-form conversations with members of the Java platform group at Oracle who develop the language, APIs, and runtime we rely on every day. That format isn't going anywhere, but we're beefing it up a bit, and we're also going to add a second show to our podcast roster. More on all that in an explainer episode that will come out in the next week or two. Today, we want to celebrate those 5 years, and we do that by taking a break from talking to the OpenJDK architects and letting the community speak instead. At Devoxx Belgium, I talked to Adam Bean about scripting with Java, to Maurice Naftalin about the history and trade-offs of the collection framework and erasure, and to Tom Cools about his life as a secret agent for the Crown. About the innovative way the Belgian Java User Group organizes itself. He's not actually a secret agent, his name just sounds like it, is what he wants us to believe. We begin by hearing from Adam Bean, who's been taking a very minimalist approach to Java that he uses for all kinds of custom automation, including in serverless environments.
Before we get to that, Adam, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, I like Java. I've worked with Java since 1997, mostly in real-world projects, and that's basically it.
Okay.
It was not true. Since 1995, since 1997, I'm a freelancer. That's the entire truth.
Okay. And where are you spending most of your time nowadays? Where are you coding the most and what environment?
At the beginning of Swing, of course, but now backends, and almost everything is serverless in the cloud right now.
Okay.
But usually before that, lots of Docker, Kubernetes, OpenShift, and right now almost everything serverless, Quarkus, microprofile, pure Java.
Okay. Yeah, so we have to talk a little bit about the language capabilities that were introduced over the last couple of releases that ended up, that are summarized under the term paving the on-ramp, and that make it easier for beginners to start learning Java. So there is no class wrapper around the main class anymore, there is no public, or there doesn't have to be a public, a static, a string array args. All of that is now optional, and you can just start with a simple main and then write the code. And that was intended for beginners, mainly intended for beginners, to learn the language better. But I think we both found out that it's just really handy in everyday life, right?
Yeah, it's also very, very helpful for me, so I'm kind of beginner.
Since 1995?
Yeah, since 1995. But I mean, this short main is nice because it's shorter and you can throw away lots of stuff. But the really cool stuff is, for instance, the importing the modules, the declarative Java module imports, and the capability that you don't have to compile the class file.
Yeah.
Which is very useful, not only for beginners, but for scripting and automation and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you mentioned a few other things, right? You can now say, instead of import, specific types or even or wildcards, you say import module, and then you get all the public API from a module there. And importantly, the own code doesn't have to be in a module. So that's good, right? For those people who run away when they hear modules. Right, so what environment have you been using this in? This is kind of like way to script.
Yeah, lots of automation scripts. And if you're working in the cloud, you have the challenge that you would like to automate a lot. And for that, I write automation scripts, and way easier than with shell script, for instance, and way easier to install than Python. So I think the first feature we have to mention here, it amazes me all the time, how easy it is to install Java. This is where it starts, because if you have, let's say, a pipeline, to install Java is one command, and you not only have Java, you have the entire ecosystem. But if you would like, for instance, let's say Python, because it is the obvious competitor regarding scripting, there's far more to do. So it's a lot harder to install the entire environment. And Java really shines. It's double click or just unzip or brew install. Java is everywhere, and it can be installed with single command. I think this was always true, but I'm still amazed how easy it is.
Yeah, okay. So I take your word on that. I've never went through the trouble of installing Python beyond what is already on my operating system, because my OS needs some Python down the line. Or not the OS itself, but some of the tools that I installed. So yeah, so when I want to experiment with a little bit of Python, I already had everything. But you're saying in the cloud, it's a little bit more effort to get everything together?
Yeah, but because if you have a pipeline, there's nothing there. So what do you have to do at the beginning to create your environment? And with Java, it just either it is already there, as one line and you have it.
Yeah.
So therefore also I don't like a lot of dependencies. So I try, to just use whatever's in Java. And if you have no dependencies, no problems with security issues, stuff like that, which is actually a great success story for more, I would say, enterprise or larger projects, right?
Yeah. So when you just say like you don't have dependencies, that means that you rely a lot on the onboard APIs, right? And I also noticed over the last decade really that so many things just got better, right? Like for example, when you want to read the lines in a text file, you don't have to anymore like open input streams or whatever. You can just files dot lines. You get a stream of all the lines. So really, my experience has been that many of the APIs that you need for like this scripting kind of stuff, for example, let's say you want to parse dates, local date time is there for you. What kind of APIs do you usually interact with when you do these kinds of tasks?
Formatted, of course, string formatted. This is the big one. For instance, because you can generate JSON objects for testing, right? Then the HTTP API is a great one. You can very easily download, have post and so forth. All the HTTP methods, post, put, get. Then, surprisingly, the embedded Java web server, not embedded, the
JWeb server.
The JWeb server, exactly.
So you mean like the standalone binary, or do you mean like because there's also programmatically available as through the API?
Both, actually.
Okay.
So what I did recently, I will actually show you today on stage. For testing from front ends, if you test a front end, what I would like to have is a small web server with, for instance, additional headers with disabling the caching, and it should open the browser.
Yeah.
The 2 lines with Java, right? So you can have desktop open browser, it opens, and the browser is built in. Back then I used Node.js, and it was always problematic because I had to update this, and this was just a small web server. And with Java, it is built in. I don't have to install anything.
I showed a real-world example where I needed scripting where I had like a subtitle file, which is, you might be aware, for those of you who aren't. A subtitle file is basically just a text file that contains timestamps for and then text. And then if you have the right video editor, it will know, okay, for those timestamps, this text needs to be on screen. And some of those subtitle blocks were malformatted. And I needed to find all of those. So like, okay, so how, it's a big file, no, I'm not going to do that manually, right? So I was like, okay, let's script this. So what I ended up doing is, I needed a stream pipeline to open the file and stream over the lines. I used gatherers to find these blocks, and then, with like one subtitle block and cut them. That was really handy with gatherers, so that you have an ability to, I think when you stream over a file like that has like a little structure, but it's not actually like XML or JSON or something, it's like purely structured, but just, like very text-based. It's a good way, I think, to cut this into blocks with gatherers. It's really flexible. And then little record that represents this as a value type, not a value type, like as a record. But the cool thing about that is that I thought from that moment on, it's strongly typed, right? So I start with strings, but as soon as possible, because I'm still a Java developer, I want to put things into types with methods that I can then operate on. And the whole thing it felt really productive. It was really pretty straightforward from the first moment on. I knew what I was going to do. And so that felt really good. And things like this keep happening to me, and I feel that the more I'm aware of that capability in Java, the more I'm doing it, the more I'm finding situations, oh yeah, sure, I can now just write a little script, because I don't know, I could have written Python or Bash scripts, I'm just not good at those.
Exactly, so Bash is actually harder than you think. So
yeah, it's not harder than I think. I think it's really hard.
Yeah, for me as well. Python I never tried, have to admit, but I will, but never tried. So what I did maybe, I had a problem, I had 1,000 shorts and I only need 100.
Yeah.
So how to select them? And so I reviewed the old shorts from last year and then got idea for a new shorts. So I recorded the new shorts, but I still have to select. So okay, I have no time now.
Yeah.
Implemented an app actually yesterday where I can go through all the shorts with 2 keys and say next one or go. With go, it will show me the preview and copy to one folder.
Oh yeah.
So in a half an hour, I have 172 shorts selected for today, and I'm done. And actually, the app will be usable for code reviews as well, because sometimes my clients, I'm just spot some strange classes, so I can just with one click copy them to one folder and take a closer look later.
Yeah.
So such a thing, or more serious one. Imagine you have accounts in the cloud with various account IDs. So and you all need them all the time. So what I did, a small code generator, which looks at the accounts and generates enums with hard-coded account numbers, because they never change. And these enums can be included in my infrastructure as code projects.
Okay. Yeah.
And next one, because I see a studio here, coordinating all the devices, wrote a Java Sockets client, where I can automate the entire setup. I can say, okay, short on, so it runs, stop, stop. So small things, but to save time, basically.
Exactly. And so I think, because I did actually write Python scripts occasionally, but the problem with me is not knowing the Python syntax very well means I know what I want to do, but I have to Google basically so how do for loop in Python?
Exactly.
I mean, nowadays I guess AI would be the solution to that. But I think the gist here is that for those who are like me and maybe also you, mostly one-trick ponies, who focus on the one language, that now this language is much more open to scripting. And you already briefly mentioned it. I think the other big ingredient, the other big ingredient definitely is being able to launch the source file directly. So, and not just one anymore, since JDK22, you can now launch multiple source files. And what I really find interesting here, also for a personal project, even as it grows, you can still keep doing this. It's not like, okay, I just have one file, so maybe 2 files. You can even have packages. You can even have a module descriptor if you want to. Where dependencies to get from is still a little murky, where do we get jars? Let's say I want to use, maybe you have a wrapper on some of the APIs that you'd be using or something. For example, when I streamed on Twitch, I want to talk to this Twitch API. I manually hand-coded all of those calls, but that's kind of stupid because there's a library for that. So if you get those libraries, you can also launch with those. And the upside of that is that you don't need to go through setting up a real project. You can just start doing something, keep doing it. I think the point where you have to turn it into a real project is when you start delivering. At that point, I think it's really fair to say, now you need to professionalize this. But all the way until then, you can just stay within the scripting.
I forgot to mention how it happened, because I had a template still on YouTube. I think the name is Java Plain, and it's basically a Maven project where where you have to know to put the name of the class which contains the main method, and it generates a jar which is executable.
Okay.
But sometimes I had 3 classes, and I wanted to build a tool, and for that I needed Maven. And I said, this is just stupid. I mean, why? I don't need Maven at all. Everything is JDK. And I tried to find something, and now it solves the problem, because I don't even have to compile the entire thing, right?
Yeah.
So I just say Java, and it runs. And now, 2025 example, AI. There is a pattern called code interpreter. This is what it does is AI, LLMs, are generating code, and it can be executed. I use Java for that.
Okay.
I can tell, hey, ChatGPT or Claude or whoever, please generate some Java code, and I can run it with Java.
Yeah.
And this is type safe. I can look at this, and it is executed in a safe environment. For instance, Espresso, GraalVM, for instance.
Okay.
So, and this is beyond, I would say, beginner stuff, because you are with Java C way harder, right? So you need a Java C, and with Java you get immediately the error, so you get immediately the feedback from LLM that it doesn't work.
Yeah, and also the issue with Java C is that also, I mean, unless you do something extra, you would have to have access to a file system. You have to know where do the files go and from where do you launch. Whereas with Java, just doing all that in memory. Yeah, I think unless you have something more to say, I would think that's pretty much it, right? That's
one cool use case, maybe.
Yeah, go.
JSON. So I'm waiting for JSON in Java. Maybe it will happen, but there's org.json library. This is the reference implementation. Was implemented for JavaScript. It's also available for Java.
Yeah.
It's like 20-30 classes, old, but no external dependencies. So you ask me now about dependencies.
Yeah.
So there is a project, also GitHub, MCP, also a little bit for AI. But what I wanted to have is reliable, just my code that I can rely on the, I would say, security, so that the LLMs only talk to my code and no external dependencies. I know what happens there. What I did, I just copy over the source code. License, no problem. So I have maybe 10 classes borrowed from the project, and it works fine. I would say if the license is compatible, it's absolutely okay to copy some code over and run it with your project. You take ownership of the code, and maybe LLMs can even help you to maintain the code base, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, given license compatibility, that's what open source is about, right? It's about not about the capability, not just use it as is, but to actually interact deeper with the source code and use it. Yeah, thank you very much for your insights there. I really hope that more people get really start to develop this interest in, maybe there are things that I can now do with Java that are categorically different from what I could do before, because before it was just too unpleasant or too cumbersome. And I think
one thing we have mentioned, right? We have to mention FFM.
Yeah, but I think that FFM is also like, it's on board. You can just do it.
Exactly.
So yeah, if you want to generate those files from there, and then you can also use that if they're in the source tree, you can start using.
You can have JavaScript which accesses native, tools, for instance. So this opens the door to, and it's very simple. Very, very simple. Simple.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, like I should look into their operating system. Maybe I can start.
Exactly. This is what Python does all the time, right?
Yeah.
They're calling C, and we can do it as well with FFM. It's very easy to do. It's really very easy, surprisingly easy.
Okay, cool. So again, thank you, Adam, for being here.
Thank you a lot.
I wish you all the best for your talk.
Yes.
And I see you around.
Thank you.
Bye.
And enjoy.
After Adam's and my gushing over modern Java, let's have a look at its past and how that influences the present. Why does Java's collection framework not express immutability in the type system? And should it? What were the design goals and trade-offs when collections were introduced more than 25 years ago? And what's up with generics type erasure? I had Maurice Naftalin on to talk about that. Maurice recently published the second edition of his book, Java Generics and Collections, with O'Reilly, which we used as a jumping off point for our conversation. He shows the book twice, but if you're just listening, don't worry, all you miss is an alligator drawing. Or is it a crocodile?
I'm here with Maurice Naftalin, who is all the things. Like, you're an author, you're a speaker, you're a Java champion. You've been in IT for a very long time, I hear.
Yeah, that's true. Probably longer than most other people you're going to meet as a programmer.
That is a good chance, yeah.
I started programming in assembler in the 1970s.
I was not going to ask, but I was born in the 80s without doxing myself too much, so you've been programming longer than I've breathed air on this planet.
I'm afraid that's the case. I wish I'd been, I have the accumulated wisdom of all of those years.
Okay, but I mean, so you're saying, I'm pretty sure you have some accumulated wisdom though, so because I do know that you, as I said, you're an author, and I know they did write a book that is very well known about generics and collections, but what I didn't know until I think basically earlier this year is that there's a second edition actually.
Absolutely, there's a second edition. Shall I show you?
Show it.
Absolutely. So I definitely want everybody to know about this book. So, so this is out like a couple of months, something like that, and it's a substantial rewrite. I mean, virtually every page, well, virtually every paragraph's been changed. Some of them quite a lot, because the generics part changed a lot more than I expected, because the language has changed a lot more than I expected. And in the case of collections, well, I wanted to accommodate streams and to talk about the relationship of streams to collection processing, and also to reflect some of the experience that we've had in like 25 years of the collections framework.
Is that old? Oh my God.
Yeah, that's right. It came out in 1998. Okay. It's an amazing achievement, a very long-lasting, very durable framework used by millions of Java programmers all over the world, and really has held up extremely well. And one of the major reason for this book was just to accommodate a new addition to the collections framework. I can't remember exactly when it came out, but the sequence collections.
Yeah, recently. I don't know. There was a time when I knew like all the Java versions for all the features by heart, but now it's too many and I can't anymore.
I think actually it was Java 21. That came out for, and this book was actually intended to synchronize with Java 21, but it's a book that, but it's a book that I've written, so it didn't quite synchronize.
Yeah, hold it up again, because you just accidentally covered up the authors, which is not just you. There's Philip Weller on there, which I think was involved in the original, right? And then Stuart Marks, a colleague at Oracle, worked on the second edition with you, right?
Yeah, Stuart was a technical editor for this, but in a lot of ways, it was I won't say it was an equal collaboration, really. I mean, I held the pen, but but many of the ideas came from him, and the experience that the collections framework team in Oracle have had was really valuable in informing, like, if you want, for example, there's a section in the book about good practices using collections, and a lot of that was informed by the experience of the Oracle team, because they can see they have an enormous body of code using the collections framework.
So you just mentioned that one of the new topics that you cover in there are sequence collections. So let's talk about those briefly. What's the explanation there? Because my view of sequence collection is that they're interesting in the sense that the features were mostly there, right? They didn't it's not like getting the first element of a list was not exactly impossible before.
No, it wasn't. I mean, so they were there to differing extents for different collection, for different implementations. So, for example, for a deck, they were there. They were all there. For a navigable collections, like navigable set and navigable map, they were mostly there. For lists, they were sort of there. I mean, you can iterate a list backwards, you can get the last element. But for other things, like for example, for a linked hash set, or the set you form from a linked hash map, they weren't there at all. So iterating that backwards was extremely difficult. And what the idea of the sequenced collections was that it put all of these different collection implementations onto the same footing. So it surfaced an idea, which is an idea of something that's got a total order and a first element and a last element, and all of the operations that allow you to iterate it will work in either direction. And you can get the head and you can get the tail. You can get the elements at either extreme. And it surfaced this idea, which had been sort of there, and brought it formally into the type system. So that was to me, that was actually quite interesting to understand the notion of that.
Let's talk about the implications about the type system in a second. So just list the features that you mentioned. So it's a collection that is in order, right? So that's trivially true for all lists, but it's also true for some sets.
It's true for some sets. It's a total order, so every element is either more or less than every other element.
Which is different from sorted, just to say, right? Like you can have a list that is a specific order, but the elements might not be sorted. It's different.
Well,
everything sorted is ordered, but not the other way around.
Yes, that's right. It's what they call an encounter order in the Java doc. For me, I don't think there's really any difference in an encounter order and the mathematical idea of a total order.
Yeah.
But the difference that you're talking about is whether the order is internally or externally imposed.
Yeah.
So you can't, for example, decide arbitrarily which element of a navigable set is going to be the first element, because the order of the navigable set, the order of the elements is imposed by the comparison method, either by an external comparator or by the natural order of the set. Yeah. Whereas for a list, you can manipulate. That's externally ordered. We call that externally ordered because you can control the ordering. But in either case, if you forget about how the ordering has been created, then they have this. Then the sequence collection doesn't care about that. It just cares about the properties they have in common. So actually, there are unsupported operation exception. There are unsupported operations in the sequence collection interface. For example, if you try to insert an element at the beginning of a navigable set, which is internally ordered, well, you'll get an unsupported operation there. But of course, you can do that. You can do that with other kinds of things like a deck or a list.
Yeah, that's a bit unfortunate, right? Like there's basically, you see when different concepts collide in a way, there's just no good solution, because in this case, as I said, you cannot insert at an arbitrary position in something that is internally sorted, because you cannot just argue that 5 is now smaller than 3 just because you want it to be at that place, right?
Well, that means useful to be able to do that sometimes.
Yeah, good point. But that means that either you would have these internally ordered collections would not be sequenced, which seems wrong. Right. Or they are sequenced, but then you cannot mutate at both ends, right? I guess that's like two things colliding that are mostly overlapping, but they have like an edge where they are not.
Absolutely. So that's always going to be an issue with every collections framework, and that's actually kind of the major design issue. The major design issue that has to be resolved by the designers of a collection framework is how much of the different requirements on the collection framework, how they're going to be realized in the type system. Yeah. And there's a kind of standard complaint that it's kind of very normal. And the collections FAQ, the collections design FAQ, written by Josh Bloch in 1998, said perhaps the most controversial decision was to have unsupported operation exception. And like 30 years later, getting on 30 years later, that's still the case. People are still complaining about unsupported operation exception. Yeah, that's something that's like, it's strange, right? Like that Java says like, oh, this is the public API, but by the way, just so you know, this half might just throw exceptions at you. So I think one of the more original sections of the book is where we consider in detail, like whether or not that was a good idea. Which is, I mean, actually, in the end, it's a trade-off, and it's going to be an engineering compromise. But the idea that there was just like a mistake, and quite often you read in Stack Overflow answers, why didn't they just put an immutable collection at the top of the hierarchy?
Yeah.
And if you think about that for even a moment, you realise this is not going to work. It's not going to work in an object-oriented framework because, of course, you can implement this thing with you can provide implementations that have mutator methods on them.
Yeah.
So if you have immutable collection at the top, and then you have like immutable list under that, and then you have mutable list under that, and then you have array list under that. Array list is, by the substitution principle, it's an immutable collection.
Yeah.
Which obviously isn't right.
Yeah, that kind of hierarchy would work. Like you need it basically. You wouldn't call it like immutable. You would have like something like a read-only list, and then extending from that would be a final immutable list implementation.
Yeah.
It needs to be final, right? Because otherwise I can extend and do nasty things maybe. And then there needs to be like an immutable alternative. So the question whether that works or not, I think at this point is also said, because that's something that's extremely hard to retrofit, just because collections are used everywhere. So even if you would create this hierarchy, it would take forever to get there.
I don't think we were considering seriously that you would retrofit this onto the collection framework.
No, for that reason, right? Like it would be simple with a snap of finger. It would be worth considering, but at this point, it's not even worth really considering.
But the question, I mean, for what we unearthed in discussions around this was that the problem with this way of thinking about it. I mean, we go into this in quite a bit of detail and thinking about. Well, yeah, of course, the idea of having a readable read-only is the wrong implication because an array list would then be an implementation of the read-only interest. You would want to have readable and writable.
Or maybe it's just list and the other one is mutable list.
Yeah.
We argue about names.
Yeah.
We can quibble names all the time.
So actually, one of the things that are in this chapter is a list of some of the characteristics that you're looking for in a collections framework, just in principle. And one of them is that the collection names, or the interface names in particular, should actually reflect precisely what the implementations do. And that's actually really quite hard to do because, as you've just discovered, the moment you start thinking about this, you may well find that the implementations aren't exactly what you expected. But the kind of bigger issue here is that people are looking for to get semantic constraints reflected in the type system completely. Yeah, and that's actually asking too much because there really is no limit. The FAQ that I talked about that Josh wrote in 1998 suggests he imagined, well, supposing we try to make the type system reflect all the different semantic constraints that there could be on collection. So you might want to have for every characteristic you'd want your collection to have, you want them to be read-only, so you have to have an interface and implementations corresponding to that, and then you want them to be readable and writable, and then you want them to be append-only, and then you want them the things that for example the collections that are returned by array.aslist. Then what that gives you is a collection, a list of fixed size. So are you going to have a type that corresponds exactly to that? Because there are changes you can make to that. You can alter elements of that, and you can read from it, but you can't extend it. You can't add an element to it.
This is also really. I'm hard pressed not to say broken. Like that thing is a weird list. It's like the weirdest kind of list, as you say, because it's like you can replace in position, but you cannot like add elements to it, and that's just a very weird combination of what to expect from a list, what to handle if you get a list instance.
Well, the problem with that way of looking at it is you have expectations of what a list should be, and they're set by the contract for list. Which may well actually have subcontracts, right? So it may well have specializations, and that's actually perfectly reasonable. It's a choice about how you want to reflect those extra constraints. So you could reflect. So here's another example. I just taken
an approach is by the thread safe. Did you want to have all of these interfaces then also in the thread safe variant, which again duplicates the amount of
absolutely. Absolutely. So you would have to have you have concurrent hash map. Concurrent map, you'd have to have a concurrent list and so on and so on. So think about, for example, a list that can, I don't know, only have an equal number, an even number of elements. That's an example of the book. Now, you could, if you really wanted to go, if you wanted every semantic constraint to be reflected as a type constraint, you could try and define the type for lists that only have an even number of elements. It's actually not that much weirder than the idea of having a type for a fixed length list, as we just discussed. So the problem is that you're trying to ram every possible semantic constraint into this really small space of a type system. Types, and sometimes there are other ways of expressing things. So you can express things via contracts. I mean, we do that a lot of the time. You expect if you write a collection, or if you write a class, you expect that the way that it's going to behave is defined by the contract, which may just be written in natural language. And you think, well, that's terribly weak. But actually, we do it a lot of the time and rely on it. Maybe we should be using, I don't know, static analysis rules or formal specifications. That would be lovely, right? But
that's what the type system would do for you, right? It's basically formal specification running on every compiler.
Yeah, no, that's quite true. But I mean, we don't have that kind of framework. And at the moment, actually, to insist that the type system should carry all of the burden of all of these different the meanings of all these different programs, it's kind of ridiculous.
I agree, but in fairness, I think this is basically a slippery slope argument, right? Like, okay, so if we put this into the type system, should we also put this in, and then where does it end? I think the question is, maybe it's not obvious, or maybe it wasn't obvious, which of these additional dimensions to a collection would be worth enshrining the type system.
Right.
I think Java has always done, and I think this has generally worked in its favor, even though we can afterwards quibble about the places where it didn't work. It's generally been careful with that approach, and not to overdo something too early, not to say like, because if we now think, yes, immutability or just readability, this like more detailed type system there, this would have been worth it, but would people have known in the end of the 90s? Or would if they make like different trade-offs and different decisions, and maybe now we do not have this split, but some other split would have made it to the type system, and now that would be even worse, right? So this approach of being careful with it and not overdoing it too early, I think, as I said, paid off for Java in general. And so I personally am one of the people who think having like, maybe not read-only, but readable, having this in the framework would be great. I just don't see a path from where we are to that space. And so I don't think the added value is big enough to go on this really decades-long track to get there.
I seriously don't think anybody's considering that. I think the more interesting thing, because frankly that's not really very interesting. Nobody's going to do that. The more interesting thing is to think. Is to look at the criteria that you want from a collections framework in particular. I mean, this is like probably, if you think about it, it's probably the library more than any other that's used by more programmers over time than almost any other library in the history of programming.
That
probably
sounds true. I don't know. Okay, I don't know that Hila's kept long enough to make a counter argument, but it sounds like it could be true, definitely.
I'm not going to go to the wall on that, but that's my guess.
Yeah, because that's my guess. Java developers, every Java developer uses it.
So this is what Josh was thinking in 1998. I mean, it's an amazing achievement to think, well, what am I going to do for the next 30 years, for the next 50 years probably, for millions and millions of programmers. Yeah. So one of the criteria was, I want this to be small. I want it to have a small surface area because not all the programmers who are going to use it are going to want to learn everything.
Yeah.
But also I want it to be extensible. So some of these things there are other criteria as well, but the point I'm trying to make is that they're in conflict.
Yes.
So there's, I mean, you can argue about whether or not exactly the right compromise was made. I think that's fair to say. But I think overall, the success of the framework has actually shown that, by and large, these compromises were pretty good.
Yeah, and we can see that that avoiding making this API too large has its own benefit. Even though now, if you work with a simpler than it would have otherwise been Java Collections API, you might not notice that. But for example, two APIs that are arguably more complex, although I would argue they need to be, so that's fair. But just to say, for example, the datetime API that was added in Java 8, right? That is very detailed because it models a very complex domain. And that is one API, for example, that people are more struggling with than working with lists and sets, because it's just a very detailed API that models a lot of this complex underlying space. And so, and that's good. I'm not saying that the API did a bad job there, but I'm saying there you notice what it means to work with an API that is more complex than the collections framework, for example.
Well, I love the date time API. So I'm not going to get distracted on that. But I think maybe.
Tell me you do not have to look up how to go from an instant to a local date to a local date to a time to a date.
Well,
this is
I wrote a course about it, so I'm happy with that. To my mind, a better contrast is with the Eclipse collections, because the Eclipse collections are written for a different time, and with a completely different design philosophy, and I think that they're very good, and this is not me complaining about them at all, but they're different, and there's a huge proliferation, thousands of classes. It's a completely different attitude, and I think programming with them would probably be. It's almost essential to have an IDE for that.
Yeah.
That's you're really going to need code completion for that to work, and it's just a different choice. There's clearly just a different idea behind that. It's aimed at I think it's probably aimed at a different target market, and they're very successful and very popular. So and for good reason, but they're different, and different engineering choices were made.
Arguably, it feels better to be in a situation where the simpler thing is the one that you learn by default and you get on board, and the one like Eclipse collections is the one that you pull in if you really need to, versus the other way around.
Yes, I think I agree with that. I think I'd only qualify that by saying, well, yeah, you're probably right. I'd be a bit worried that Java programmers would think this is the only way to do it, because having seen the Java collections framework, they might say, well, that's what a collections framework should look like. Then they look at the Eclipse collections and say, I don't want anything to do with this because it's too complicated, and that would be a mistake.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. It's certainly an awful lot easier to get started on Java if you can present you with a list and a set, and that's your starting point. And Don Raab has recently written a book on Eclipse collections, which is amazing. It's very.
He's the current maintainer.
Yes, he's not the current maintainer, but he was the driving force behind them for a very long time. His book's a lot thicker than my book.
Oh, it's like the JavaScript book and the JavaScript the good parts books.
No. That's the wrong analogy. But yeah, there is a lot more to it. So yeah, if you're going to learn about the Eclipse collections, I think you're going to. I'm sure that what he would say. I should speak up. I shouldn't speak for him, but I'm sure he would say that the idea that there are a relatively small number of unifying ideas behind them, but there's still a lot of implementations.
Yeah, they have, for example, this primitive specializations, right? That alone already balloons the number of classes, regardless of everything else. Just having an int list and a byte list and a long list and whatever. I'm not sure whether they have all of those actually, but I know that they have something like an int list that's backed by an actual int array. Just that already at least quadruples the number of types you're going to have.
Absolutely. We did consider, one of the things in the book is in this section of the book, we did consider the different possible ways in which you could handle this issue of basically how you could get rid of concurrent modification exception. And the idea that you could have readable collections as a super type. You could have readable collections. In fact, you could have them as a subtype, or you could have parallel type hierarchies. And however you choose to do it, you're going to get many more types than there are in the collections framework.
Yeah. So, but you talked about this was one of the lessons, right? That from there, this consideration of what should we express in the type system, and that this was probably the Goldilocks situation of just right. Do you think there are any other noteworthy things or takeaways afterwards from now 25 years later?
Well, there's always the old chestnut of whether or not or rather, another engineering compromise was the issue of erasure for generics. That's not to do with the collections so much, although they're quite closely intertwined.
So they came out together, right? Or like
no. The Java Collections Framework appeared in Java 2 in the prehistory of 1998.
Exactly.
Whereas the Java 5.
If I cut anything, I'm going to cut this too, because I totally knew that. But right, they were retrofitted, right? The collections were retrofitted with the generics, so that's why this is why the topics belong together so much, because people have known and used the collections framework, and now they need to learn how to use those with the generics that were new when Java 5 came out.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's good. That was my bad. I said the wrong thing.
No. Well, I didn't mean to put you down. I mean, like this stuff is for people watching. This is ancient. This is such ancient history. To me, it seems like yesterday. But I know that for normal Java developers, things that happened 20 years ago.
Look, I'm still at that age where I don't like to feel old, right? Like, I haven't accepted it yet. So.
sorry. I'm afraid you're a loser with that one, Nicolai.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay, I'm officially old now.
Yeah.
Also, I talk about old history, but also I forgot the details. Both of those seem to be indicators.
Right. Well, yes. I'm afraid so. So.
Erasure, yeah.
So, that's right, erasure. So that's, I don't know that that's so controversial now. That was massively controversial at the time.
Maybe the discussion just died down, but I think it's pretty easy to get people riled up about erasure still.
Well, yeah. So
the question is how many people, but some people definitely. Yeah.
So people do like to get fired up about things.
Yeah.
To my mind, I think we've learned to live with that, and there are some really awkward corner cases. With generics in Java, and I mean actually a significant part, actually much more of the book, the first half of the book on generics, is given over to these awkward corner cases and to thinking about them than it is about the kind of straightforward use of it. I mean, generics are pretty straightforward to use if you're writing client code. Mm-hmm. So the real problem is if you're writing library code, then sometimes you have to scratch your head and think about exactly what type you want. Sometimes they're fairly complicated. Well, and that's the way it should be, because generally speaking, library writers are going to be more experienced. Yeah. So I'm not too bothered about that. But the difficulties of these corner cases arose first of all because arrays had a different typing system than the one that was introduced for generics, and they don't fit very well together. Yeah. So as I'm sure you know, arrays are covariant, which means an array of.
I was going to say you need to explain that.
Yeah, right. Which means that an array of say integer is a subtype of an array of number, because integer is a subtype of number. Yeah. Whereas the same is not true of collections. So a list of integer is not a subtype of a list of number. Yeah.
Can you quickly explain why one is the one way and the other is the other way? Because when you first look at this, let's say somebody didn't know and you just presented those two facts, they'd be like, well, that's stupid and inconsistent. Well, but there are actually reasons for that, though.
Okay. So. Well, yes. Yeah. It's inconsistent. It's not stupid, but it is inconsistent, and it does create a difficulty. I'm sure that if generics had been around, there would not have been this covariant type system for arrays. But the problem was that they wanted to be able to write generic methods on arrays. So you wanted to be able to write, supposing, for example, that you wanted to be able to write a method that would sort an array of. Well, what? Well, it would, if it's going to sort this array, the objects are going to have to implement comparable, or they're going to have a comparison method on them. And that means that it's got to, unless you want to write a different sort method for every different subtype of comparable. I need to sort integers, and now I want to sort strings, and now I want to sort. Well, you see where I'm going. Yeah. You don't want that. So what you need to do is to define the arrays of integers and strings and all that as subtypes of arrays of comparable. Yeah. So the same sort method will work on all of them.
So the sort method can accept an array of comparable, and then whatever array of something that is comparable I have, I want my array of integer to be a subtype of array of comparable, so I can pass it to that method, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I think that the problem with collections is then is more obvious, because if you think, well, a list of integer clearly should be a list of number. But that means that I can put a double in my list of integer, because my list of integer would be a list of number, and a list of number would accept on a set method, for example, a double.
Absolutely.
And now my integers have a double, and that doesn't sound right.
And you've got heap pollution. Yeah. Absolutely. So the essentially the point that you've made there is about having turned what is a runtime exception. If you can get the same kind of thing with arrays. It's called an array store exception, but you can't get that same thing with collections. They've eliminated that because they've turned it into a compile error.
Yeah.
And that's great. I mean, of course, we should turn runtime exceptions.
But to flip it around, I can cast to a raw type, and I could put still a double into my list.
You'd better cut that out.
Nope, that's going to stay in there. That's actually interesting, because one of the arguments I heard why Java generics with erasure have at least over something like templates in C++, which I don't know that well, so you might correct me here, have an advantage is because with templates, a list of integer is actually a different type from a list of number. But in Java, both of those at runtime are just a list. And that means you can cast to raw types. And that is something that even nowadays frameworks do actually do and rely upon. And with a templating system, all this, I know what kind of list it is. Let me briefly treat it as a different kind of list is something that is not actually, like everything you cast to raw type on the way to go to different generics, which is something that regular code does very, very rarely, but framework code does occasionally do, is something that would not be different not be possible with at least a templating system like C++, as far as I'm aware.
I think you may well be right about that. I mean, the more common criticism of templating systems like that is that because they create a different type for every type instantiation, you get an explosion of types, and that really hurts your runtime performance.
Specifically, something like a just-in-time compiler would have to treat a list of integer. If that was a different type, then would actually have to treat that bytecode differently, optimize that bytecode differently, or separately, and then you not only end up with more types, you also end up with just less runtime performance as a consequence of that.
Yeah.
So Java's generics being erased. I think the thing is this: if we could get non-erasure for free, I think it sounds good, but it's not actually free. And I think this is a mistake, just like with why don't we have just readable collections. It's easy to be in a situation where you know very well what works and what doesn't, and then assume, but if I had that thing, everything that now doesn't work would work. But what might be harder to spot is, but some of the things that now do work maybe don't work anymore, and that's not always easy to grasp.
We have there's a section in the book which is like an evaluation of would it be worthwhile even if you could do it, and to some extent that relied on. Post written by Brian Getz to quite a great extent. Brian Getz is the Java platform architect, and he has been quite strongly against thinking about implementing reification, which is like removing erasure. And I'm afraid I've accepted his arguments pretty much.
I can link it in the description. I think it has a real title, and then the end of the title is how I learned to love erasure. Right? I think it's that article.
There's a reference. You can pick it up from the bibliography of the book. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So tell people where to get that book and show it one more time. I think then we're going to call it a day.
Where to get the book? Well, you get the book. You get the book at all good booksellers.
Nobody goes to a bookseller anymore.
Well, wherever you get your books, please do, and please read it. And I had a very nice experience just now before I came down. Somebody just saw me eating and said, "Did you write this book?" And I said, "This book?" He said, "Yes." He said, I really enjoyed it." And the nice thing was, he said, "I really enjoyed the first part of it, which was about generics, which Phil Wadler wrote for the first edition, and I kind of changed it a bit because I thought I really didn't like his explanations that much, and I'm afraid I didn't criticize them as I should have done in the first edition." And he said, "Yeah, that's the part that I really liked." So, okay, good. Phil Wadler is a really well-known and really eminent computer scientist, but I think I explained things reasonably well. So buy this book, read it, and give it good reviews, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Maurice. If people find you at a conference, maybe they bring a copy and you'll sign it for them?
Of course.
Good.
Naturally. Oh, and in fact, if they're here at the conference, we've got a book event.
Yeah, but this video is going to go out after Devoxx is over. So unfortunately, next Devoxx, you bring your book to Maurice. He's going to sign it for you.
Okay, right.
So thank you for being here. Thank you for all the insights. I hear from everything we just talked about, there are so many more in there. Also, specifically the kind of insights that I am often interested in, because look, I can look up how sequence collections work on my own. What I care about is why though. Why do they look like this? JEPs nowadays explain a lot of that, but it's like much of that information is not recoverable for like past decisions, or at least not easily. So it's something like why generics look like this. What are some things we could have we learned from that? I'm always interested in that. So maybe like I only read in the evenings, which makes it hard to read non-fiction, but maybe I'm going to make an exception for that. So yeah, thank you very much for being here, Maurice.
Sure.
After 45 minutes of tech talk, let's relax a bit. My last guest in this episode is Tom Cools, and since Devoxx Belgium takes place in, spoiler, Belgium, we talked about the BeJUG. But I think what Tom says about community building and specifically about his open source approach to organizing is interesting to a wider audience.
I'm here on a special topic because this time we're not going to talk about something technical. We're going to talk about the whole community around this. We're here with Tom Cools.
Hi everyone.
Who is your claim to fame, beside being a great Java developer and speaker and all of that, is you're the leader of the Belgian Java User Group, is that right?
I'm the sort of main leader, but I too have other guys that help me out.
So you're the leader. Okay.
Well, let's say I'm the person that decided to reboot the Belgian Java User Group first, and then I had some more people that joined me.
Okay. Oh, that's already an interesting thing about the reboot. But before we get there, a little birdie told me that this is one of the oldest Java user groups?
One of the oldest, yes. It started in 1979.
79?
97. Oh, I always mess that up because in Dutch it's like you say
German
it the
too.
other way. Yeah, it's the same. So it's been going on for not next year, but the year after we're celebrating 30 years not of Java, but of this Java user group.
Okay, that's great.
It was originally started by the organizer of Devoxx, so Stefan Janssen hosted it. Then Devoxx actually grew from that JUG meetups, and we got like every organization, you sometimes get a bit bigger and bigger, and you decide, oh, I'm going to do one day event, grow more, until the Devoxx it became now. But the JUG got kind of, let's say got left behind a little bit because most of the BeJUG organizers became very busy with Devoxx.
I can imagine.
And then it was silent, and then the real thing happened, COVID.
Yeah.
Then it stopped completely, and as soon as COVID was sort of nearing its end, I took over the BeJUG.
Okay, but it's also, you just covered a lot of ground, right? Like, so I think in the keynote, Stefan said that this is the he said 2001, I think, was the first Devoxx. So a couple of years, 4 years in this case, after the founding of the Java User Group. They said like a group, what's it called, like Java Polis or something in the beginning?
Java Polis was the original name of the conference,
Yeah, exactly. And then you just basically, they said like, and then slowly the Belgian Java User Group was less active, and then Corona. Like, I think that happened to many users. Like, COVID was hard, I think, on basically all communities, like not just Java, like all kinds of communities.
Yeah, definitely.
Technology, but also just humans. It was hard on everyone. But it was specifically hard, I think, also on these kind of meetups. And if they're already faltering, I think that was a death knell maybe to quite a few.
I think from 2016, so quite a bit before COVID, it was slowing down to the point of one meetup each year.
Oh, okay.
And then it fell, with COVID it just fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a coincidence that I took over because in 2020 I decided to start my own JUG, February 2020.
Great timing.
Called the Antwerp JUG. Yeah, I consider myself the winner of the Bad Timing Awards.
Oh, I got a story for you there in a second, but go on.
So I started the Antwerp JUG thinking, this COVID thing will be over in like 2 months. So let's just start the JUG because else I'll never do it. We had 2 online events, then 1 physical event, and it just didn't work out at all. And then when COVID was sort of, we thought that it was ending, like after the first wave, I reached out to Stefan like, hey Stefan, you have the BeJUG and Devoxx, could you maybe help me promote the Antwerp JUG? Because you have all the network and so on. And he basically said, no, I'm not going to do that, but don't you just want to take over the BeJUG?
So he just dumped it off on you the first chance he got.
I wouldn't say that. And I actually said no the first time because I really wanted to have my own thing, like the Antwerp JUG. And then one day, it was very weird, the BeJUG was hosted on meetup.com. And what happens on meetup.com if nobody pays for the account, suddenly there's this big banner, this meetup will disappear unless someone steps up as an organizer.
Yeah.
And I was like, should I press the button? Because it actually has a step up button, and if you click it, you own the JUG.
What?
On Meetup. Yeah. It's very weird. I can show you a screenshot
Everybody
later.
can just do it?
Everybody's
a part of the...
That's a member of the JUG, yes.
Okay.
And I thought, would I do it? Wouldn't I do it? So at some point I decided, you know what? I was a bit afraid that some cynical recruiting or marketing company would basically click the button and say, okay, thank you for giving me access to like 1,200 email addresses, basically.
Yeah.
So I decided to click the button, become the temporary organizer. And
No such thing as temporary.
No, it was actually supposed to be temporary.
That's the thing. They're all supposed to be temporary, those solutions. That's like it's technical debt in real life. It's supposed to be temporary. Then.
So at that point, I still considered myself the custodian, and I had a buff session here at Devoxx where I basically said, the jug is dying. I took over temporarily. Who is interested in hosting this with me?
Yeah.
Or taking over? And then we basically made the first plans of how are we going to do this. I found some people to help me out very quickly.
Yeah.
And now it's this open sourced, cool experience that we have. And I can tell you more about that open source part.
Yeah. I also want to touch on something that you basically implicitly mentioned, which is many Java user groups rests on not many shoulders.
Yeah, correct.
So, for example, I know that Java User Group in Karlsruhe, where I live, is basically run by a guy. Like he does a great job. Like we have like monthly meetups and everything is cool. Shout out to Michael Priest, by the way, doing a great job running that place. But it's still crazy, right? Like if like something happened to him, there would be like a big scramble. I don't know whether anybody else has any logins. Like how even, right? As far as I'm aware, maybe some people are helping him a bit. I don't want to exclude. Like I want to say that's definitely not happening, but I don't think it is happening to a degree where other people can just take over. And I think that is actually common in many places. So if you're watching this, think like, I would, like to maybe be involved in Java User Group, but oh my God, my Java User Group is already running smoothly. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's running smoothly because one guy or one gal is burning the midnight oil, and they would probably appreciate being reached out to.
Yeah, so about that, there is actually 2 user groups in Belgium. There's the national one, the Belgian, that I host. There's a jug that's almost as old. That's the Brussels Java User Group. Mm-hmm. That's currently being run by one person that slowly wants to stop doing that because he's been doing it for 12 years and just life is happening.
Yeah.
And he can't find the energy to host events again. So if you're from Belgium and you see this, reach out to the Brussels Java User Group because they're actually looking for someone to take over right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's like many of these communities, like it's just like open source projects, right? They're these very important open source projects. They're not like, wait, that's just one person? How is that?
I remember when a couple of years ago here at Devoxx, the Maven team came here, and they basically said, we need some help, and everyone was like, you're Maven, like you're sound. Everyone's using you. You're probably fine. Oh, we have like 2 or 3 maintainers, and the rest is just. So and they were a huge risk. Both of them were in the room. So if something would have happened, like a big part of the Java ecosystem would have been in serious trouble.
Yeah. I mean, likewise, for example, Maven Central. This is not run by some multinational corporation that has like deep coffers. It's Sonatype. I'm not saying it's a small, tiny company exactly, but still, it rests on the shoulders of one place, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that's for something like Maven Central. That's also pretty crazy, given that it's how important it is. I failed to find the words to describe it properly.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us about the open source BeJUG thing.
It actually has quite a relation to what you just mentioned of sometimes there's only one person hosting a jug.
Yeah.
So when I took over the jug, I realized I want to be a dad in like a year or 2.
Yeah.
So I knew.
Great time to be a community leader.
Correct. So I knew if I only put this on myself, I will become a dad, not have enough time, and this will like falter. So from the beginning, I said we're going to run this jug like an open source project. Mm-hmm. So our jug website is of course just a GitHub repository. Or more importantly, the entire organization is just a GitHub repository. So what we do is we get together occasionally, and I just make issues in GitHub. Meetup March, Meetup April, Meetup every month or whatever we want to do.
Sure, you're fun at parties.
In these parties, actually, everyone kind of likes the system because every meetup I just say, whatever if you feel like contributing, just scroll through the list of issues and see what you want to do. See what you can do. And if you have a cool idea, just add it as an issue and then we can see how we can collaborate. Actually, the logo of our user group was a GitHub issue. I just said, we need a recognizable logo.
Do we have anything with us here to show?
Yeah, I have stickers on me, but...
Brilliant sticker.
Can I take one? It's a Duke with holding fries and the Belgian flag behind it. So.
Oh my God, come on guys.
Come on. Yeah, we're Belgians, man. We debated having some Belgian beer on that, but then we thought, not everyone likes alcohol, so...
But everyone likes fries.
It's
if you're Belgian.
I'm not that strict, but like it's sort of a joke.
You want to tell the story of the logo? I think that how that came.
Oh yeah. So that was an issue. I just said we need a recognizable logo so we can make stickers to have it on Meetup. And someone in the community said, "Oh yeah, sure. Here's what I made," and that's what it turned out to. And and he's that's actually Loïc Meunier, who was also helping me host events in the southern part of Belgium, because Belgium is a bit of a weird country where we have Flanders, which speaks Flemish, Brussels is its own thing, and then we have the southern part of Belgium that speaks French, sort of dialect of French. And he hosts events there, because he's from Wallonie, and I host things in Flanders. Then we have Frank, who helps out, but on the western side of Flanders, so closer to France.
Okay. You think about the open source community that you described there. I think that the really cool thing is that something that I also observed when I was working on General Pioneer and streaming about it is, if like a barrier for people to contribute is not knowing what to contribute, not knowing the context. So sometimes somebody might be like, I want to do something, but I'm not sure what exactly, and like making it so that the process or like the work is more transparent also means that somebody can actually use that transparency, look into and be like, oh, so this is what needs to be done. I know that, and so while they would not be willing to call you on a Friday afternoon at like 4 p.m. be like, hey Tom, I have like 2 hours, what could I do? But they might be scrolling through GitHub and say like, yes, I can create a logo, I have a friend who might give a talk, oh yeah, there's still one in May. So yeah, that makes sense.
Correct, and it's also very transparent on where we're hosting, and basically every issue on GitHub is like this checklist of things that we need to do. And often I just get a comment like, hey, my company wants to host. Okay, good. Pick a month. Pick a month. Choose a date, because we just have one event each month. We don't really care that much about the date. We have some rules. And for speakers, the same. Or you have a topic you want to try out. Yeah, we're a JUG. You can come try out anything you want to at our place. Just either add a ticket, and then we will couple you to another ticket that is then the event. Or just directly comment on like Meetup November.
So you're very close to the passive-aggressive pull request welcome.
It's not pull. No.
I said it's very close.
Yeah, it's not pull request. It's just.
So I'm writing an email. I want to speak at the Belgian Java. You're like, go to GitHub.
Yeah, sort of. Sort of. But then they at least get to see like what months we still are looking for speakers. So I try to put it in that context, and it's been working really, really well.
I can imagine. That sounds really good. I feel like I'm the next Java user groups I'm at. I probably. Bring that up, ask them what they think about it. That sounds really smart. I see how this could really help, specifically the situations where it is a lone person organizing this, even though initially it probably seems like a little bit of overhead. But I could assume, I don't know whether that's going to happen, I would assume if somebody starts doing that and then keeps mentioning that at the meetups, be like, hey, this is what I do now. Go there, and then maybe that's the way to invite maintainers, because going back to that example of General Pioneer and live streaming, all the people who are now maintaining it came into the project through that, right? So they didn't start with, I want to take this workload on, because they didn't know what was going to happen. So they started like, oh, but I can do this, I can do this and that, and then before they knew it, the trap closed, and now they're maintainers.
It's exactly the same with the guy that created our logo. he's now organizing things in the southern part of Belgium. So all good. It's a good way to drag people in.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Like a closing thing you want to tell me about?
I'm thinking of it. There's so much I want to talk to you about, but there's just not enough time.
Maybe off camera?
This might get very cozy with a beer then. I'm just happy that you're here, and I'm glad that you doing these interviews, because I think it's important to get a bit behind the scenes as well, especially for people that weren't able to come here, because Devoxx is a bit of a lottery the last couple of years. I don't know if you know, but it sold out in like 3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah?
Yeah. So we have this festival in Belgium called Tomorrowland. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like one of the biggest dance festivals. I had a bit of an unfortunate incident this year.
Maybe that is a story that we do tell off camera.
Their main stage burned down, but they managed to fix it in 24 hours, so that's good.
Okay.
But it's like that amount of ticket sales, like it's going that crazy. So I'm glad that people that are not at Devoxx, well, they get all the recordings from all the talks because they'll get it up on YouTube. But this is like a sort of a hallway track that you don't see on YouTube all that often. So good job on doing this.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah.
And that was my last guest. Thank you, Adam, Maurice, and Tom for sitting down with me. And also thank you, David, for sitting next to us right out of frame to keep the recording gear going. If you, dear listener, want to hear more from Java community members, I highly recommend the Duke's Corner podcast. On it, my colleague Jim Grisanzio regularly interviews Java luminaries like Venkrat Subramaniam and community builders like Matthias Karlsson, the organizer of JFocus. In his most recent episode, he talked with Jean Boyarsky about the Java 25 certification. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed this special community edition of the Inside Java podcast. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, things will change a bit around here, and I can't wait to tell you about it in the next episode. So long!